She thought the billionaire CEO was infertile until triplets proved miracles still exist. Ava stood frozen at the hospital door, her breath caught in her throat. Inside, billionaire CEO Avery Cole, the man doctors had declared infertile, cradled 3 toddlers in his arms. Her toddlers. Their toddlers. He couldn't have children. Yet there he was, holding 3. His eyes met hers across the room, filled with wonder and disbelief. "How?" he whispered, voice breaking with emotion. "The doctors said it was impossible." Have you ever watched your life split into before and after a single moment that rewrites everything you thought you knew? Ava stepped into the room, her heart pounding against her ribs. Science doesn't know everything, Avery. Some things defy explanation. The pain of heartbreak had brought her here, walking away from the man she loved, when his infertility diagnosis shattered their dreams of a family. The mystery of miracles had followed, discovering she was pregnant despite medical impossibility, giving birth to not 1 but 3 perfect children who shared his eyes, his smile, his blood. As Avery gazed at the 3 small faces looking up at him with curious eyes identical to his own, the truth crashed over him like a wave. These were his children. Children he never knew existed. Children born of a miracle no doctor could explain. "I have so much to tell you," Ava said softly. "So much you've missed. Before we go further, pause right here. If this moment is pulling at something inside you, you're exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to Mr. Sterling's Secrets of Love, so these stories find you when you need them most. Tap like if you believe miracles are real. Share this story with someone who needs hope. And comment, "I believe," below, so I know you're part of this community. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, before the separation, before the miracle, before 3 heartbeats changed everything. Ava Sinclair and Avery Cole's love story began like a modern fairy tale. She was a brilliant architect with dreams of designing spaces that brought people together. He was a tech entrepreneur with a revolutionary software platform and ambition that burned like fire. They met at a charity gala, her designing the space, him donating to the cause. Their eyes locked across the room, and something electric passed between them. "You've created something magical here," he told her that night, gesturing to the transformed warehouse space. "The way you've balanced grandeur with intimacy, it's remarkable." "Thank you," she replied, surprised by his genuine appreciation for her work. "Most people don't notice the subtle details. I notice everything worth seeing," he said, his gaze never leaving her face. Their courtship was a whirlwind of passionate conversations, shared dreams, and deepening connection. After their romance deepened into certainty, he proposed on the rooftop of a building she'd designed. The city lights spread below them like stars fallen to earth. "You make me believe in possibilities I never considered," Avery told her as he slipped the ring on her finger. "A life beyond work. A future filled with more than just success. We'll build that future together," Ava promised, tears of joy streaming down her face. Their wedding was intimate but elegant, just like Ava's designs. They honeymooned in Greece, exploring ancient ruins and making plans for their life together. Children featured prominently in those plans, 3 or 4, they agreed, enough to fill their home with laughter and chaos and love. As their marriage blossomed, everything felt possible. They purchased a penthouse with breathtaking views, which Ava transformed into a warm, inviting home. Avery's company, Horizon Technologies, secured its first major investor. They traveled, entertained, supported each other's ambitions, and fell more deeply in love. But as Horizon Technologies grew, so did the demands on Avery's time. 18-hour workdays became normal. Weekends disappeared into marathon strategy sessions. Vacations were interrupted by urgent calls. Ava supported him through it all, understanding that he was building something extraordinary. "It won't always be like this," he promised her late one night, crawling into bed long after she'd fallen asleep. "Once we're established, once the platform launches globally, then I'll scale back." Ava believed him. She always believed him. When they decided to start trying for a baby after settling into married life, Ava approached it with the same meticulous planning she brought to her architectural projects. She tracked her cycle, adjusted her diet, took prenatal vitamins, and scheduled their intimate moments around her fertility windows. Not the most romantic approach, but Avery's schedule left little room for spontaneity. Seasons passed with no success, then more seasons. Maybe we should see a specialist, Ava suggested gently one rare Sunday morning when they were both home and awake. Just to make sure everything's okay. Avery frowned, his pride visibly wounded. There's nothing wrong with me, Ava. These things take time. Of course, she soothed. But it wouldn't hurt to check, both of us. He agreed reluctantly, but the calendar pages kept turning before he actually made time for the appointment. The initial tests were inconclusive. More tests followed. Ava endured invasive procedures, hormone treatments that made her emotional and bloated. Endless blood draws. Avery provided samples between meetings, his participation, clinical, and detached. Their sex life, once passionate and spontaneous, became a scheduled medical event. The joy of intimacy faded beneath the pressure to conceive. Through it all, Horizon Technologies continued its meteoric rise. Avery was featured in business magazines, hailed as a visionary, invited to speak at global tech conferences. The distance between them widened with each success, with each failed pregnancy test, with each silent dinner eaten alone. Then came the day that shattered everything. Ava sat alone in the fertility specialist's office, clutching the folder containing their test results. Avery had promised to be there, but an emergency board meeting had taken precedence. Again. I'm sorry, Mrs. Cole. Doctor, Brennan said gently. The results are conclusive. Your husband's condition makes natural conception virtually impossible. His sperm count and motility are both severely compromised. But there are treatments, right? Ava asked, her voice small. IVF? ICSI? Dr. Brennan's expression was compassionate but honest. We can try, certainly, but I need to be clear. Even with the most advanced techniques, your chances of success are extremely low. Less than 5%, given the severity of his condition. Ava felt the world tilt beneath her. Less than 5%. After endless trying, hoping, planning their family, less than 5%. She drove home in a daze, the folder heavy on the passenger seat beside her. How would she tell Avery? How would he take this blow to his masculinity, his sense of self? Would this bring them closer in shared grief, or push them further apart? Avery didn't come home that night. A text message late in the evening informed her he was flying to Singapore for an emergency meeting with investors. He'd be gone for several days. The days stretched into more than a week. When he finally returned, Ava was ready with the test results. With her carefully prepared words of comfort and hope. With brochures about adoption and surrogacy and other paths to parenthood. But Avery walked through the door already on a call, barely acknowledging her presence as he headed straight to his home office. She waited patiently, making his favorite meal, setting the table with candles and wine. He emerged hours later, distracted and exhausted. We need to talk, Avery, she said, as he picked at his cold dinner. About the test results. What test results? He asked, scrolling through emails on his phone. The realization that he'd completely forgotten the fertility test that had consumed her life for months, was like a physical blow. The fertility tests, she said, her voice tight with hurt. I got the results while you were away. He looked up then, finally present. And? She slid the folder across the table, watched as he scanned the medical jargon, the devastating numbers, the clinical assessment of his infertility. This can't be right, he said flatly. We need a second opinion. Dr. Brennan is the top specialist in the country, Avery. But yes, we can get a second opinion if you want. I don't have time for more doctors right now, he snapped. The Singapore deal is at a critical stage. Once it's finalized, there will be another deal. Ava interrupted, years of suppressed frustration finally boiling over. Another emergency, another conference, another reason why our marriage, our family, has to wait. That's not fair, Avery protested. I'm building this company for us, for our future. What future, Avery? You're never here. And now, she gestured to the folder. Now we learn that the family we planned may never happen. Don't you care? Doesn't that matter to you at all? Of course it matters, he said. But his eyes drifted back to his phone as it buzzed with an incoming message. But getting emotional won't change the diagnosis. We need to be practical. Practical, Ava repeated, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. Like scheduling sex around your meetings? Like injecting myself with hormones while you're on conference calls? Like sitting alone in doctor's offices hearing that our dreams of a family are practically impossible? Avery's expression hardened. I didn't ask for this, Ava. You think I want to be defective? You think this is easy for me to accept? I think nothing about us has been easy for years, she said quietly. And I'm tired, Avery. I'm tired of being alone in a marriage. I'm tired of loving someone who's never here. I'm tired of putting my life on hold for a future that keeps moving further away. The argument that followed was ugly years of unspoken resentments, erupting like a volcano. Avery stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Ava collapsed on the kitchen floor, sobbing until she had no tears left. He didn't come home that night, or the next. On the third day, she received a text. Flying to Tokyo. Need space to think. Back soon. He needed space, while she sat alone with their shattered dreams. Something broke in Ava that day. Some final thread of hope that had kept her hanging on. With calm determination, she packed her belongings, contacted a realtor about selling her share of the penthouse, and filed for separation. By the time Avery returned from Tokyo, the penthouse was half empty. Her clothes gone from the closet. Her books missing from the shelves. Her architectural models and drafting table vanished from the spare room she'd used as a studio. On the kitchen island sat the fertility clinic's report alongside a note in her elegant handwriting. I still love you, but I can't live in a house without laughter, without connection, without hope. You've built an empire, Avery, but you forgot to build a home. I need to find myself again, to remember who I am, beyond being Mrs. Avery Cole. Please, don't try to find me. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the divorce. Ava. Avery stood in the half-empty penthouse, the magnitude of his loss washing over him like a tidal wave. For the first time in years, he had no meetings to rush to, no calls to make, no deals to close that seemed more important than this moment. But it was too late. She was gone. That night, Avery found one of Ava's old sketchbooks in his office drawer. Inside, designs for a children's playroom she'd been planning. The date, 3 years prior. He'd never noticed. Does this remind you of your own story? Sometimes we see ourselves in places we least expect. Drop a blue love emoji if you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage. The divorce was finalized with clinical efficiency. Avery didn't contest any of Ava's requests. The settlement was generous. The proceedings amicable on paper, if not in spirit. He threw himself into work with renewed intensity, as if Horizon Technologies could fill the void Ava left behind. Outwardly, Avery Cole became more successful than ever. The company expanded globally. His net worth tripled. Business magazines dubbed him the Machine for his relentless drive and unemotional approach to decision-making. Inside, he was hollow. After settling into his new reality, in a rare moment of introspection triggered by finding one of Ava's earrings beneath the couch, Avery established the Horizon Fertility Foundation. He endowed it with $50 million and a mission to fund cutting-edge research into male infertility treatments. He told himself it was a sound business decision, good PR, tax benefits, a worthy cause. He never admitted, even to himself, that it was his way of atoning for how he'd handled the diagnosis that ended his marriage, his silent apology to the woman he'd lost. Meanwhile, Ava retreated to a small apartment across the city. She took a teaching position at a local university's architecture department, scaled back her design work, and focused on healing. Friends worried about her isolation, but she assured them she was fine just finding her footing again after years of living in Avery's shadow. After settling into her new life, Ava woke one morning violently ill. She blamed food poisoning, then a stomach virus. But when the nausea persisted for weeks, always worst in the morning, a different possibility began to form in her mind. Surely not. It couldn't be. The doctors had been clear Avery's condition made natural conception virtually impossible. Yet she found herself in a pharmacy, purchasing a pregnancy test with shaking hands. In her tiny bathroom, she watched in disbelief as 2 pink lines appeared, clear and undeniable. Pregnant. Her first call was to Dr. Brennan, the fertility specialist who had delivered the devastating diagnosis. "This can't be right," Ava said, echoing Avery's words from that painful night. "You said it was impossible." "Not impossible, Mrs. Cole," Dr. Brennan corrected gently. "Highly improbable. There are documented cases of spontaneous conception, even with severe male factor infertility. Rare, but not unheard of." "How rare?" Ava pressed. "In your ex-husband's case? 1 in thousands, perhaps. 1 in thousands. A miracle, by any definition." The first ultrasound brought another shock. Not 1 heartbeat, but 3. Triplets. Identical twins and a fraternal sibling, the technician explained, pointing to the tiny fluttering lights on the screen. "See? These 2 share a placenta, while this one has its own." Ava stared at the screen in wonder. 3 babies. 3 miracles growing inside her, defying medical odds, defying explanation. For a brief moment, she considered contacting Avery. He had a right to know, didn't he? But the thought of reaching out, of disrupting the fragile peace she'd found, of potentially inviting his half-hearted involvement in her pregnancy. No, these babies were her miracle, her new beginning. She would tell him someday, she decided. When the children were older, when she was stronger, when the wound of their failed marriage wasn't so raw. The pregnancy was difficult from the start. Multiple gestation brought increased risks, constant monitoring, and by mid-pregnancy, bed rest. Ava's mother moved in to help, bringing practical support and the comfort only a mother can provide. "Have you thought about telling him?" her mother asked one evening, as she brought Ava dinner in bed. "Every day," Ava admitted. "But what would I say? Remember how you were too busy for 1 baby? Surprise. Here's 3? He's their father, Ava. Biologically, yes, but being a father is more than DNA. It's showing up. It's being present. It's putting family first." Ava rested her hands on her swollen belly, feeling the flutters of movement beneath her skin. "He made his choice, long before I left." As her due date approached, the contractions started. Too early, but not unexpected with triplets. Ava was rushed to the hospital, terrified for her babies, for herself, for the future she'd planned so carefully. The delivery was a blur of pain and fear and medical urgency. When it was over, 3 tiny, perfect babies lay in the NICU. 2 boys and a girl, each weighing less than 4 pounds, each fighting with a strength that amazed the nurses. "They're fighters," the neonatologist told Ava when she was finally wheeled in to see them. "Especially the little girl. She's the smallest, but the most determined." Ava named them thoughtfully, deliberately. Rowan Blake, after her grandfather who had taught her to see the beauty in structural design. Jordan Lane, after her father who had shown her what a loving, present dad should be. Clara Wynne, a name that had simply come to her as she gazed at her daughter's perfect tiny face. 3 miracles. 3 impossible children who shared Avery's hazel eyes, his determined chin, his long fingers. The early months were a blur of sleepless nights, endless feedings, and a bone-deep exhaustion Ava hadn't known was possible. Her mother stayed to help, a lifeline of support and wisdom. Friends formed a rotation of meal deliveries and baby-holding shifts. Her department chair arranged a flexible teaching schedule that allowed her to work primarily from home. Still, there were moments, usually in the darkest hours before dawn, with all 3 babies crying simultaneously, when Ava wondered how she would survive this alone. When the absence of a partner, a co-parent, felt like a physical ache. But then morning would come. Rowan would smile his serious little smile. Jordan would babble excitedly at a sunbeam. Clara would curl her tiny fingers around Ava's thumb, and she would remember. This exhaustion was temporary, but these miracles were forever. By the time the triplets celebrated their first birthday, they had developed distinct personalities. Rowan was thoughtful and observant, studying the world with careful consideration before engaging. Jordan was all energy and curiosity, constantly in motion, constantly exploring. Clara was the peacemaker, sensitive to others' emotions even at her young age, quick to offer comfort with a pat or a smile. Ava documented everything: first smiles, first teeth, first words, first steps. She created elaborate photo albums and journals, determined that her children would have a record of every milestone, every precious moment of their early years. "Are these for them or for him?" her mother asked gently one evening, finding Ava labeling photos well past midnight. "For them," Ava insisted, "so they'll know their story." But deep down, she wondered if some part of her was preserving these memories for Avery too, creating evidence of what he'd missed, what he'd chosen to forfeit. As the triplets grew from babies to toddlers, Ava's career gradually rebuilt itself. She designed a community center that won critical acclaim, then a series of affordable housing developments that combined beauty with functionality. Her students adored her practical, compassionate approach to teaching. Life developed a rhythm, chaotic but joyful, challenging but rewarding. She dated occasionally, when her mother could watch the children. Nice men, kind men, men who were impressed by her talent and her strength as a single mother. But none who made her heart race the way Avery once had. None who felt worth disrupting the family unit she'd so carefully constructed. And what of Avery during these years? From the outside, Avery Cole appeared to have everything. Horizon Technologies had become a global powerhouse. His personal wealth exceeded billions. He traveled by private jet, dined with world leaders, graced the covers of business magazines. His penthouse remained half empty, despite the efforts of a professional decorator he'd hired to refresh the space. He replaced the furniture Ava had chosen, painted over the colors she'd selected, removed all traces of their life together except for one photograph, hidden in his bedside drawer from their honeymoon in Greece. The Horizon Fertility Foundation grew into one of the most respected organizations in its field, funding groundbreaking research and providing support to couples struggling with infertility. Avery attended the annual gala, made speeches about innovation and hope, wrote enormous checks, and never once mentioned that his own infertility had inspired it all. Women pursued him, of course. Beautiful, accomplished women who were attracted to his power, his wealth, his carefully cultivated public image. He dated casually, never allowing anyone close enough to see the emptiness behind his success. "You need an heir," his board chairman told him bluntly after one particularly successful quarter. "Someone to carry on what you've built." Avery's smile never faltered, though the comment cut deep. "The company is my legacy," he replied smoothly. "Though I appreciate your concern for my personal life, Richard." At night, alone in his penthouse with its spectacular views and perfect emptiness, Avery sometimes allowed himself to wonder about Ava. Where she was, what she was doing, if she'd found happiness, built the family she'd always wanted, perhaps with someone who deserved her more than he had. He never searched for her, though he had the resources to find her within hours. That had been her one request: "Please don't try to find me," and he would honor it, even if it was the only promise to her he'd ever kept. Years passed this way. Ava building a life centered around her children and her work. Avery building an empire that felt increasingly meaningless. Two separate lives that had once been intertwined, now existing in parallel, never touching. Until fate intervened in the form of a rainy Tuesday afternoon, a slippery road, and a driver who ran a red light. Some of you are holding your breath right now. I can feel it. This next part, stay with me. It gets harder before it gets beautiful. The call came during a board meeting. Avery's executive assistant, Skylar, slipped into the conference room with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Cole, but there's an urgent call from Memorial Hospital." Avery frowned, irritation flashing across his features. "Take a message. We're in the middle of quarterly projections." "Sir," Skylar persisted, her voice lowered. "It's about Ava Sinclair, your ex-wife. She's been in an accident." The room tilted slightly. Avery hadn't heard her name spoken aloud in years, had trained himself not to react when he occasionally saw it in architecture journals or design awards. "Excuse me," he said to the room of executives, his voice remarkably steady despite the sudden pounding of his heart. "We'll reconvene shortly." In his office, he took the call with hands that weren't quite steady. "This is Avery Cole." "Mr. Cole, this is Dr. Patel from Memorial Hospital. I'm calling because you're listed as the emergency contact for Ava Sinclair." Emergency contact. She'd never changed it all these years later. "What happened?" he asked, his throat tight. "Miss Sinclair was involved in a car accident this afternoon. She's sustained serious injuries and is currently in surgery. We've been trying to reach her next of kin." "I'll be there immediately," Avery interrupted, already reaching for his jacket. "Is she—" He couldn't finish the question. "Her condition is critical, but stable, Doctor," Patel replied. "There's something else you should know, Mr. Cole. Miss Sinclair has children who were with her at the time of the accident." "Children? Of course. She would have moved on, built the family she'd always wanted." "Are they injured?" he asked, surprising himself with how much he cared about the answer. "Minor injuries only, thankfully. They're being monitored as a precaution, but physically they're fine. However, they're quite distressed, as you can imagine. We need a family member or guardian to be with them until Miss Sinclair recovers." "I understand. I'm on my way." Avery ended the call and stood for a moment, trying to process what was happening. Ava, injured. Children who needed care. Him, of all people, being called to help. "Skylar," he called, opening his office door. "Cancel my meetings for the rest of the day. Have Casey bring the car around." "Yes, sir. Shall I reschedule the board for tomorrow?" "Cancel everything for the week," Avery said, surprising himself with the decisiveness of it. Family emergency. Family. The word felt foreign on his tongue. The drive to Memorial Hospital felt like an eternity. Racing thoughts and resurfacing memories. What would he say to her? Would she even want to see him? And her children, how would he explain his presence to them? To their father? At the hospital, Avery was directed to the surgical waiting area. A social worker approached him immediately. "Mr. Cole, I'm Riley James. Thank you for coming so quickly." "How is she?" Avery asked, ignoring the pleasantries. "Still in surgery. The doctors are cautiously optimistic, but it will be several hours before we know more." Riley hesitated. "The children are in the pediatric waiting room. They're asking for their mother." "Of course. I'll speak with them. Try to reassure them." Avery straightened his tie, a nervous gesture. What has their father been told? Will he be joining us soon? Riley's expression shifted to confusion. "Their father? I was under the impression that you—" She stopped, realization dawning. "Mr. Cole, these are Miss Sinclair's biological children, 3 of them, triplets. They're 4 years old. Triplets. 4 years old." The timeline crashed into Avery's consciousness like a physical blow. 4 years since the divorce. 9 months of pregnancy. That would mean— "That's not possible," he said, his voice barely audible. "I can't. We couldn't." "Mr. Cole," Riley said gently, "perhaps you should sit down." But Avery was already moving, following the signs to the pediatric waiting area, his heart thundering in his chest. It couldn't be. The doctors had been clear. His condition made natural conception virtually impossible. Virtually impossible. He paused outside the cheerfully decorated room, gathering himself. Through the window, he could see 3 small children sitting close together on a colorful couch. 2 boys and a girl, all with dark hair like Ava's. A nurse was reading them a story. But they weren't paying attention. Their little faces were solemn, worried. The girl clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest. One of the boys had his arm in a sling, a minor injury from the accident, Avery presumed. He pushed the door open, and 4 pairs of eyes turned toward him. 3 pairs were identical hazel, his hazel set in small faces that reflected his own features back at him with uncanny clarity. "Who are you?" asked the boy without the sling, his head tilting in a gesture so familiar it made Avery's chest ache. It was the same way Ava tilted her head when she was trying to solve a particularly challenging design problem. Avery's voice failed him. What was he to these children? A stranger with their eyes? A father who didn't know they existed? "I'm a friend of your mother's." The nurse stood, recognition flashing across her face. "Mr. Cole? The hospital called you?" Avery nodded, unable to take his eyes off the children. His Children. It was impossible to doubt they were unmistakably his, from the shape of their eyes to the determined set of their small jaws. "Is Mommy okay?" the little girl asked, her voice small but steady. Avery knelt to her level, instinctively wanting to comfort her. "The doctors are helping her right now. She's hurt, but they're fixing her up." "When can we see her?" asked the boy with the sling. "As soon as the doctors say it's okay," Avery promised, his throat tight with emotion. "What's your name?" "Jordan," the boy replied. "And that's Rowan, and that's Clara. We're triplets." "I know what triplets are," Avery said softly, a smile tugging at his lips despite the surreal situation. "It's nice to meet you, Jordan. And you, Rowan. And you, Clara." Clara studied him with an intensity that reminded him painfully of Ava. "You look like us," she observed. "Your eyes are the same." Avery's heart skipped. "Out of the mouths of babes." "Yes," he agreed, simply. "I noticed that too." The nurse cleared her throat. "Children, why don't you continue your story with Miss James here? I need to speak with Mr. Cole for a moment." Outside in the hallway, the nurse, her badge read Jenkins, fixed Avery with a direct gaze. "You didn't know about them, did you?" "No," Avery admitted, still reeling from the discovery. "Their mother and we've been divorced for years. I had no idea she was pregnant when she left." Nurse Jenkins nodded, her expression softening slightly. "They're remarkable children. Bright, well-mannered, clearly adored. She's done an amazing job with them." "Yes," Avery agreed, a complex mixture of emotions washing over him, awe at the existence of these three perfect beings, grief for the years he'd missed, anger that Ava had kept them from him, and beneath it all, a dawning sense of responsibility, unlike anything he'd ever felt before. What happens now? With Ava in surgery, who's responsible for them? "That would be you, Mr. Cole, as their biological father and Miss Sinclair's emergency contact. Unless there's someone else, grandparents, perhaps?" Avery thought of Ava's mother, who had never approved of him even before the divorce. Her mother lives in Arizona. It would take time for her to get here. "Then for now, the children are in your care," Nurse Jenkins said. "Social services can assist if needed. But given the circumstances—" "No," Avery said firmly. "No social services. They're my—" He paused, the word still foreign and extraordinary. "They're my children. I'll take care of them." The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork, medical consultations, and getting to know three small humans who shared his DNA but were complete strangers to him. A doctor confirmed what Avery already knew. DNA tests showed he was, without question, the biological father of all three children. Ava's surgery was progressing well, but she would remain sedated for at least a day. The children were cleared to leave the hospital, but had nowhere to go. Their home was across town, and no one had keys. "They can come home with me," Avery found himself saying. "I have plenty of room." His penthouse. His sterile, minimalist, child-unfriendly penthouse with its white furniture and glass tables and complete lack of anything a 4-year-old might need or want. "I'll need to make some arrangements," he added, already pulling out his phone. Skylar answered on the first ring. "Mr. Cole, is everything all right?" "I need you to do something unusual," Avery said, stepping away from the children for privacy. "I need you to make my penthouse child safe. Immediately." A pause. "Child safe, sir?" "Yes. I'm bringing home 3 4-year-olds. They'll need beds, clothes, toys, whatever children that age require. Hire whatever help you need. Price is no object. And Skylar, discretion is essential." To her credit, his assistant didn't ask for explanations. "I'll take care of it, sir." "When will you be arriving home?" Avery checked his watch. Evening was approaching. "As soon as possible." "And Skylar? Thank you." By the time Avery shepherded 3 exhausted, confused children into his private elevator, he was operating on pure adrenaline. The day's events felt surreal, like a dream he might wake from at any moment. But the small hands clutching his, the solemn eyes watching his every move, the occasional sniffles from Clara, who still held her stuffed rabbit, In a death grip, these were undeniably real. "Your home is very high up," Rowan observed, as the elevator climbed smoothly to the penthouse level. "Yes, it is," Avery agreed. "You can see the whole city from the windows." "Are there other kids here?" Jordan asked, looking around the elevator with curiosity. "No, just me," Avery replied, realizing how empty that sounded. "But there will be you three now. At least until your mother is better." The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer. Avery braced himself, expecting to see his usual austere living space. Instead, he stepped into what looked like a high-end children's boutique had exploded in his home. 3 small beds had been set up in the guest room, complete with colorful bedding. The dangerous glass coffee table had been replaced with something padded. Child-sized clothes were laid out on the beds. A basket of toys sat in the corner of the living room. The kitchen counter held an assortment of child-friendly foods. Skylar stood in the center of it all, looking both proud and slightly terrified. "I hope this will suffice for tonight, sir. I can make more permanent arrangements tomorrow. This is..." Avery was at a loss for words. "Thank you, Skylar. This is exactly what we needed." The children hung back, clearly overwhelmed by the strange environment and the events of the day. "Are you hungry?" Avery asked, trying to remember what children needed. Food, sleep, comfort. Those were the basics, weren't they? 3 small heads nodded in unison. "I got chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, and fruit," Skylar offered, gesturing to the kitchen. "The internet said those are safe bets for kids this age." "Thank you," Avery said again, genuinely grateful for her initiative. "You can go home now. I think we can manage from here." Skylar looked doubtful but nodded. "I've left my personal number on the counter. Call if you need anything, anytime." After she left, Avery faced his first challenge as an instant father, feeding 3 exhausted, traumatized toddlers while having no idea what he was doing. "Do you like chicken nuggets?" he asked, leading them to the kitchen. "Mommy makes them in dinosaur shapes," Jordan informed him. "These aren't dinosaurs," Avery admitted, examining the bag Skylar had purchased. "Just regular shapes. Is that okay?" Jordan considered this seriously. "I guess so. But dinosaurs taste better." Despite his complete lack of experience with children, Avery managed to heat the food, find appropriate plates. Skylar had thought of everything, and get all 3 seated at his sleek dining table, which suddenly seemed ridiculously formal for chicken nuggets. As they ate, he studied them surreptitiously, cataloging the features they'd inherited from him and from Ava. Rowan had his analytical gaze, but Ava's thoughtful expression. Jordan had his determined jaw, and Ava's expressive hands. Clara was a perfect blend. Prop his eyes. Ava's delicate features. A smile that was somehow uniquely her own. "When can we see Mommy?" Clara asked, pushing her plate away half-eaten. "Tomorrow, I hope," Avery said gently. "The doctors are taking very good care of her." "She reads us a story every night," Rowan informed him. 3 stories, actually. 1 for each of us." "I see," Avery said, panic rising at the thought of bedtime. He hadn't read a children's book since he was a child himself. "Well, I can try to read to you too, if you'd like." "Do you know Goodnight Moon?" Clara asked, her expression serious. "I'm not sure," Avery admitted, "but we can look for it." To his relief, Skylar had included a stack of children's books with the other supplies. Goodnight Moon was among them, its well-worn cover suggesting it was a popular choice. Bedtime was a complex negotiation of bathroom turns, teeth brushing with new toothbrushes Skylar had provided, and getting 3 wriggly children into pajamas. By the time Avery settled into a chair between the 3 small beds to read, he was more exhausted than after his most grueling business negotiations. "In the great green room there was a telephone and a red balloon," he began, feeling oddly self-conscious. "That's not how Mommy reads it," Jordan interrupted. "She does funny voices." "And we get to say the rhyming words," Clara added, bouncing slightly. "Can I turn the page?" Rowan asked quietly. "Let me try again," Avery said, adjusting his approach. "Rowan, you can be in charge of pages." His second attempt was more successful, with exaggerated voices that made Jordan giggle and spaces left for the children to fill in words they clearly knew by heart. By the third reading, 1 for each child, As Rowan had specified, Avery was getting into the rhythm of it, finding unexpected pleasure in their delighted responses. As he turned out the light, leaving only a small nightlight glowing another of Skylar's thoughtful additions, Clara's small voice came from the darkness. "Are you going to take care of us until Mommy gets better?" The simple question carried so much weight, so much trust. These children, who had never met him before today, were placing their well-being in his hands without question. "Yes," Avery promised, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm going to take very good care of you." "Good," Clara said, her voice already drowsy. "Mommy says we have to be brave, but it's hard sometimes." "I know," Avery whispered. "It's hard for grown-ups too." After the children fell asleep, Avery collapsed onto his sofa, the events of the day crashing over him like a tidal wave. Triplets, his triplets. 3 miraculous children, who had been living and growing for years, without his knowledge. Why hadn't Ava told him? The question burned in his mind, along with a dozen others. Had she known she was pregnant when she left? Had she deliberately kept them from him? Out of anger? Out of hurt? Or had she truly believed he wouldn't care, wouldn't want to be involved? He thought back to those final months of their marriage, to his obsession with work, his dismissal of the fertility diagnosis, his inability to be present even when he was physically there. Viewed through that lens, perhaps her decision made a painful kind of sense. But still, these were his children. He had a right to know them, to love them, to be their father. The anger that flared was quickly doused by a sobering thought. Would he have been a good father years ago? Would he have prioritized 3 newborns over Horizon Technologies? Would he have been willing to change diapers between board meetings? To be awakened multiple times each night? To put his ambitions on hold for the sake of his family? The honest answer made him deeply uncomfortable. Avery slept fitfully on the sofa, unwilling to retreat to his bedroom in case the children woke disoriented in the night. In the early morning hours, his prediction proved accurate when a small figure appeared in the hallway. "I had a bad dream," Clara whispered, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Avery sat up, instantly alert. "Do you want to talk about it?" She shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes, his eyes. "I dreamed. Mommy didn't wake up." "Come here," Avery said softly, opening his arms without thinking. To his surprise, Clara climbed onto the sofa and into his embrace, without hesitation, as if she'd known him all her life. Her small body trembled with silent tears. "Your mom is very strong," Avery told her, awkwardly patting her back. "And the doctors are taking excellent care of her. She's going to wake up and be so happy to see you." "Promise?" Clara asked, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Avery hesitated. He couldn't promise that, not with absolute certainty, but the desperate hope in her voice demanded reassurance. "I promise to take you to see her as soon as the doctors say it's okay," he said instead. "And I promise that no matter what happens, you won't be alone. I'll be right here with you and your brothers." This seemed to satisfy her. Clara's breathing gradually steadied, and within minutes, she was asleep against his chest. Complete trust in a man she'd just met. Avery sat motionless, afraid to disturb her, overwhelmed by the weight of this small person who shared his blood. He had held multi-million-dollar deals in his hands, had negotiated with world leaders, had built an empire from nothing, but none of that had prepared him for the terrifying vulnerability of holding his sleeping daughter. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Avery made a silent vow. Whatever it took, however long it required, he would prove himself worthy of the trust this child had placed in him. He would be the father these children deserved, the father he should have been willing to be all along. Morning came with the chaos of 3 confused children waking in a strange place. Rowan was quiet and watchful. Jordan bounced with nervous energy. Clara stayed close to Avery, as if their middle-of-the-night bonding had created an invisible tether between them. "Can we see Mommy now?" was the first question, asked by all 3 in various forms. "Let me call the hospital," Avery said, reaching for his phone with one hand, while attempting to pour cereal with the other, a feat of coordination that proved more challenging than expected. The news was encouraging. Ava had made it through the night. Her vitals were stable, and the doctor was cautiously optimistic about her recovery. However, she remained sedated, and visitors, especially young children, would need to wait until she was more alert. "Your mom is getting better," Avery told them, crouching to their level. "But she needs a little more rest. The doctors say maybe this afternoon we can visit her." "What are we going to do until then?" Jordan asked, his energy seeking an outlet. Avery looked around his penthouse, a space designed for high-powered entertaining and solitary contemplation, utterly unsuited for 3 energetic 4-year-olds. "What do you usually do on Saturdays?" he asked. "Mommy takes us to the park," Rowan said quietly. "Or we do art projects, or read books." Art projects. Park. These were foreign concepts in Avery's carefully controlled world. "How about," Avery thought quickly, "we go get some breakfast, then maybe visit a toy store? You each can pick out something special." The suggestion was met with cautious enthusiasm, a small victory in a situation that felt overwhelming. The outing was an education in itself. Avery Cole, accustomed to efficient meetings and streamlined schedules, found himself navigating the glacial pace of 3 small children. Everything required negotiation. Which restaurant, which table, what to order, who sat where. At the restaurant, a family-friendly place Skylar had recommended via text, Avery watched his children. His children argue good-naturedly about pancakes versus waffles. "Pancakes are better because you can make faces with berries," Clara explained with the seriousness of someone presenting a thesis. "But waffles have little squares that hold the syrup," Jordan countered, equally earnest. "Can I have both?" Rowan asked, ever the diplomat. "You can have whatever you want," Avery said, realizing as the words left his mouth that parenting probably required more boundaries than that. But today, with their mother in the hospital and their world turned upside down, he'd allow some indulgences. As they ate messily, enthusiastically, with syrup somehow ending up in Clara's hair, Avery found himself smiling. These children, born of a miracle he hadn't believed in, were extraordinary. Smart, funny, resilient. Ava had done an incredible job raising them. The toy store was sensory overload, bright colors, loud sounds, endless options. The children scattered like dandelion seeds in the wind, each drawn to different sections. Rowan gravitated toward puzzles and building sets, carefully examining each option with the same analytical approach Avery brought to business decisions. Jordan made a beeline for anything involving dinosaurs, his enthusiasm infectious as he explained in breathless detail the differences between various species. "Actually, Dad, Spinosaurus was even bigger," Jordan bounced excitedly as Avery knelt beside him. "I saw it at the museum. It had this giant sail thing on its back." "A sail?" Avery asked, genuinely curious and oddly touched by the casual dad that had slipped into Jordan's vocabulary. "Yeah, like this big." Jordan stretched his arms as wide as they could go. "And it ate fish, not other dinosaurs." Clara, meanwhile, had discovered a section of art supplies and was reverently touching various colored pencils and sketch pads. "Mommy draws," she told Avery when he joined her. "She's really good. She makes buildings look like magic." "She does," Avery agreed, his heart clenching at the description. "She's an artist. Would you like to draw too?" Clara nodded enthusiastically, and Avery found himself loading a basket with more art supplies than any 4-year-old could possibly need. By the time they returned to the penthouse, laden with bags and new treasures, Avery received the call he'd been waiting for. Ava was awake. If you've ever walked away from someone because staying hurt too much, you're not alone. Tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change? The drive to the hospital was quieter than their morning outing. The children sensed the gravity of the moment, their earlier excitement replaced with nervous anticipation. "What if Mommy's really hurt?" Clara asked, voicing the fear they all shared. "She is hurt," Avery said honestly, having learned already that children deserve truth more than platitudes. "But hurt doesn't mean broken. The doctors helped her, and she's getting better. She might look different, maybe some bandages or machines that look scary but are actually helping her. But she's still your mom, still the same person who loves you more than anything in the world." In the hospital parking lot, Avery paused before unbuckling them. "Before we go in, I need you to understand something. Your mom might be surprised to see me with you. She and I, we haven't seen each other in a long time. She might be upset or confused, but that's between us grown-ups to figure out. Okay? None of that is your fault, and none of it changes how much we both love you." 3 solemn nods greeted this explanation. The walk through the hospital corridors felt eternal. Avery's heart pounded with a mixture of dread and anticipation. What would he say to Ava? How would she react to his presence? To the fact that he now knew about the children? Outside her room, a nurse stopped them with a gentle smile. "She's awake, but still weak. Don't be alarmed by the equipment. And maybe just 2 visitors at a time? Too many people might be overwhelming. Rowan, Jordan, why don't you go in first?" Avery suggested. "Clara and I will wait right here." The 2 boys disappeared into the room, and Avery heard Ava's voice, weak but unmistakable, cry out in joy and relief. "My boys! Oh, my sweet boys!" Clara pressed against Avery's side, torn between wanting to rush in and letting her brothers have their moment. "Your turn soon," Avery promised, wrapping an arm around her small shoulders. When Rowan and Jordan emerged, their eyes were bright with tears, but their faces were lit with relief. The nurse nodded for Clara to go in. "Wait," Avery said, catching Clara's hand. "Tell your mom, tell her I'm here, that I've been taking care of you, and ask if she's ready to see me." Clara nodded solemnly and disappeared into the room. Avery waited in the hallway, every second feeling like an hour. Through the door, he could hear muffled voices, Clara's high-pitched explanation, Ava's responses too quiet to make out. Then, Clara's face appeared in the doorway. "Mommy says you can come in, but she's crying, so maybe that's bad?" "Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're happy and sad and confused all at once," Avery explained. "It's okay." He took a deep breath and stepped into the room. Ava lay in the hospital bed, her face bruised, her arm in a cast, various monitors beeping around her. But her eyes, those beautiful eyes he'd never forgotten, were alert and focused on him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Avery," she whispered, her voice rough from the breathing tube they'd removed that morning. "Ava." He stood frozen in the doorway, suddenly unsure. "May I come in?" She nodded, and Clara scrambled onto a chair beside the bed, carefully avoiding the wires and tubes. "They're yours," Ava said without preamble, tears streaming down her bruised face. "I know you've figured it out by now. They're yours, Avery. All 3 of them." "I know," he said softly, moving closer to the bed. "I can see it. I could see it the moment I met them." He paused, emotions warring within him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was terrified," Ava admitted, her voice breaking. "Terrified you'd be exactly the father you became. Terrified you'd prove me wrong about needing to leave." The words should have stung, but Avery couldn't deny their truth. "You were right to leave," he said quietly. "I was a terrible husband. I prioritized everything except what mattered most. But I was wrong to keep them from you," Ava countered, her gaze shifting to Clara, who was watching the exchange with worried eyes. "They deserve to know their father. You deserve to know them." "How?" Avery asked, the question that had haunted him since the discovery. "The doctors said it was virtually impossible." 1 in thousands, Ava said with a weak smile. "Apparently, we beat the odds." 3 times over, Avery added, his own smile tentative. An awkward silence fell between them, years of hurt and regret filling the space where conversation should have been. "How have they been?" Ava asked finally, her maternal concern overriding everything else. "Have they eaten? Did they sleep okay? Were they scared?" "They've been remarkable," Avery said honestly. "Brave. Resilient. Clara had a nightmare last night and came to find me. Jordan gave me a complete education on dinosaur species at the toy store. Rowan has been watching everything, processing it all with this quiet strength that reminds me of you." Ava's tears flowed faster. "You took them to a toy store?" "And to breakfast. And I read them Goodnight Moon 3 times, once for each of them, as apparently is tradition." "You read to them?" Ava's voice was filled with wonder and disbelief. "With funny voices and everything," Avery admitted. Jordan was very specific about the requirements. Despite everything, the pain, the shock, the complicated emotions, Ava laughed. It was a weak, raspy sound, but genuine. "I'm sorry," she said when the laughter faded. I'm so sorry I kept them from you. I thought I was protecting them, protecting myself, but I was wrong. And I'm sorry, Avery replied, his voice thick with emotion. Sorry that I gave you every reason to believe I wouldn't show up for them. Sorry that I was so absent from our marriage that you felt you had to face pregnancy and parenthood alone. So what happens now? Ava asked, the practical question carrying enormous weight. Now, you heal, Avery said firmly. You focus on getting better, and I'll take care of the children. I've already canceled all my meetings for the week. Longer, if necessary. You canceled meetings? Ava repeated, as if he'd announced he'd grown wings. The company can survive without me for a while, Avery said, recognizing the irony. Something I should have realized years ago. Mommy, does this mean he's really our dad? Clara asked, her small voice cutting through the adult conversation. Ava's eyes met Avery's over their daughter's head. Yes, sweetheart, this is your father. Your real father. Are you going to live with us now? Clara continued, her 4-year-old logic seeking clarity. That's complicated, Ava began, but Avery interrupted. How about we take things one step at a time, he suggested. First, we help your mom get better. Then we figure out the rest together. Would that be okay? Clara considered this seriously. Okay, but you have to keep reading Goodnight Moon with funny voices. Deal, Avery agreed, feeling his heart expand in a way he'd never experienced before. The following days fell into a rhythm. Avery spent mornings with the children, afternoons at the hospital with Ava, evenings managing the bedtime routine he was slowly mastering. Skylar proved invaluable, coordinating everything from meal deliveries to securing a nanny. Casey Quinn, warm and experienced, to help during the day. Ava's mother, Margaret, arrived from Arizona on the second day, her initial hostility toward Avery dissolving when she saw him competently managing breakfast with 3 energetic toddlers. You're reading parenting books, Margaret observed, noting the stack on his coffee table. 5 of them, Avery confirmed. Though the children are teaching me more than any book could. She never told me, Margaret said quietly, about the pregnancy. She said she needed space to figure things out, and I respected that. If I'd known, you would have been there for her, Avery finished. Which is exactly what she needed, people who showed up. I wasn't one of those people then. I'm trying to be one now. Margaret studied him with the same analytical gaze he recognized in Rowan. Don't break their hearts, Avery. Not again. I won't, he promised. I can't undo the past, but I can be present for their future. As spring began to bloom with its promise of renewal, Ava progressed from hospital bed to wheelchair to taking tentative steps with physical therapy. The children visited daily, their presence seeming to speed her recovery more than any medication. Avery found himself transforming in ways he hadn't anticipated. Board meetings were scheduled around school pickups. Conference calls happened with children's voices audible in the background. His penthouse, once a sterile showpiece, became a home lived in, chaotic, filled with drawings and toys and the sound of laughter. You're different, Ava observed one afternoon when Avery brought the children to visit. Jordan was showing her a drawing of a T-Rex, while Rowan explained a complex puzzle he'd completed, and Clara was carefully arranging flowers in a vase for her mother's bedside. I'm the same person, Avery replied, just finally paying attention to what matters. The board must hate it, Ava said with a knowing smile. Actually, profits are up, Avery admitted. Turns out delegation is good for business. Who knew? His expression grew serious. Ava, we need to talk about what happens when you're discharged, about custody, arrangements, the future. I know, Ava agreed, her own expression troubled. I've been dreading this conversation. I don't want to fight you, Avery said quickly. I don't want lawyers and courts and battles. He paused, searching for the right words. I want to be their father. Really be their father, not just biologically. I want regular time with them, to be involved in their lives, their decisions, their futures. Of course, Ava said immediately. Avery, I would never keep them from you now. I see how much they love you, how quickly they've bonded. I was wrong to deny you that chance before. But where do I fit? Avery pressed. Do I see them on weekends? Alternate holidays? How do we make this work? Before Ava could answer, Jordan looked up from his drawing. Why can't we all live together? Like a real family? Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. It's not that simple, buddy, Avery said gently. Why not? Jordan persisted with 4-year-old logic. You like Mommy. Mommy likes you. We like both of you. What's complicated? Ava and Avery exchanged a long look. Years of history passing between them in that glance. Your dad and I hurt each other a long time ago, Ava explained carefully. Sometimes, when people hurt each other, it's hard to go back to how things were. But you're not hurting each other now, Rowan observed, his quiet voice carrying weight. You're being nice to each other. We are, Avery agreed. And that's good. But being nice and being together are different things. Grown-ups are weird, Clara pronounced, returning to her flower arranging. After the children were distracted with a movie on Ava's tablet, Avery and Ava continued their conversation in lowered voices. They're not entirely wrong, Ava admitted. It would be easier, logistically. The children are comfortable with you now. They've been split between your place and the hospital. Adding a third location with me would be disruptive. Are you suggesting we live together? Avery asked, trying to keep hope from coloring his voice. I'm suggesting we consider what's best for them, Ava clarified. Not what's easiest for us, or what makes sense emotionally. What do the children need? Stability, Avery said immediately. Consistency. Both their parents. If possible. My apartment is small. Ava continued, thinking aloud. 2 bedrooms. The children share one room. I have the other. There's no space for you, even if we wanted that arrangement. My penthouse has plenty of space, Avery offered. 4 bedrooms. The children are already set up there. You could have your own room, your own space. We'd be co-parenting under one roof, but with clear boundaries. That's a lot to ask, Ava said uncertainly. You've already upended your life for them. I can't expect you to. Ava, Avery interrupted gently. I want this. Not out of obligation. Not out of guilt. I want to wake up knowing my children are down the hall. I want to be there for breakfast, chaos, and bedtime stories. And yes, I want you there too, not as my ex-wife, but as their mother, as my co-parent. Maybe, eventually, as my friend again. Ava was quiet for a long moment. We'd need ground rules, clear boundaries. This wouldn't be about us rekindling anything. It would be about giving the children a stable home, with both parents present. Agreed, Avery said quickly. Separate bedrooms, separate lives, unified parenting. We can make this work. Okay, Ava said finally. When I'm discharged, we'll try it. For the children. For the children, Avery echoed, ignoring the small part of his heart that whispered it might be for more than that. In Ava's hospital bag, the nurses found a journal when gathering her belongings. The last entry, dated the morning of the accident, read, The triplets asked about their father today. I'm running out of good answers. By the time Ava was discharged, a plan was in place. The penthouse had been reorganized, a proper bedroom set up for Ava with an attached bathroom, giving her privacy and space. The children's room was expanded to accommodate their growing needs. A schedule was drafted for household responsibilities, childcare duties, and work commitments. Welcome home, Avery said as he helped Ava through the penthouse door, her movements still slow as she recovered. This isn't home, Ava replied, but without malice. But thank you for opening it to us. The first weeks were an adjustment. Ava struggled with accepting help, with relinquishing control of routines she'd established over years of solo parenting. Avery struggled with not overstepping, with respecting Ava's role as the primary parent while establishing his own. They bickered over bedtimes and screen time limits. They disagreed about discipline approaches and nutritional standards. They navigated the minefield of co-parenting with the awkwardness of strangers learning each other's rhythms. But slowly, gradually, they found their groove. Avery learned that Ava needed coffee before conversation in the morning. Ava discovered that Avery was surprisingly good at braiding hair for Clara's ballet class. They developed a system. He handled morning routines. She managed evenings. He oversaw homework and educational activities. She nurtured their creative and emotional development. You're actually good at this." Ava told him one evening, after watching him patiently help Jordan through a frustrating puzzle. "I have good teachers," Avery replied, nodding toward the children. "They're patient with my learning curve." "I meant it as a compliment," Ava clarified. "I know," Avery said, meeting her eyes. "And it means more than you realize." As summer arrived with long, warm days, family outings became routine. Parks and museums, weekend trips to the beach, simple adventures that wove them together as a unit. Observers might have mistaken them for a happy family, and perhaps, in some ways, they were becoming one. Here's the truth: miracles don't happen to people who've given up hope. They happen to people who keep showing up. Be one of those people. Subscribe now. One evening, after the children were asleep, Avery found Ava on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her. "I was thinking about how different this is from what I imagined," Ava admitted. "When I found out I was pregnant, I pictured raising them alone, building a life separate from you. I never imagined this." "This?" Avery prompted. "Us. Here, co-parenting successfully, actually enjoying each other's company again." She paused. "It's disconcerting. Disconcerting good or disconcerting bad?" Ava considered this. "I don't know yet. We hurt each other so badly, Avery. I'm afraid of falling back into old patterns. Afraid of trusting you with more than just the children's well-being." "I'm afraid too," Avery admitted. "Afraid I'll slip back into work obsession. Afraid I'll disappoint them the way I did before. Afraid that what we're building is fragile and I'll somehow break it." "So, what do we do with that fear?" Ava asked. "We keep showing up," Avery said simply. "One day at a time. We communicate instead of retreating. We remember what's at stake." He gestured toward the penthouse, where their children slept peacefully. "They're worth fighting our fears for." "Yes," Ava agreed softly. "They are." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and caution in equal measure. "I should get to bed," Ava said finally, breaking the spell. "Physical therapy in the morning." "Good night, Ava." "Good night, Avery." But as she walked away, Avery could have sworn he saw her smile. By the time leaves began to change, painting the city in golds and reds, they had found their rhythm as a family. The children thrived with both parents present, their personalities blooming under consistent love and attention. Avery had officially stepped back from day-to-day operations at Horizon Technologies, appointing a capable CEO to handle routine matters while he focused on strategic direction and on being present for his family. The board had been surprisingly supportive, especially when they saw his renewed energy and innovative thinking. "Fatherhood suits you," his board chairman remarked during a quarterly review. "You're more focused, more decisive, less scattered." "Turns out having something worth coming home to makes all the difference," Avery replied. Ava, meanwhile, had resumed her teaching position and even taken on a new design project, a community center that celebrated her return to the field she loved. Working from home several days a week, she found balance she'd never managed as a struggling single mother. "I couldn't have done this without you," she told Avery one afternoon as she finalized renderings for her presentation. "Having childcare support, not carrying everything alone, it's changed everything." "We're a team now," Avery said simply. "That's how it should have been all along." The children's 4th birthday had passed with a celebration that felt momentous, their first birthday with both parents present. Now, as they approached their 5th birthday, planning was already underway. "Can we have a dinosaur party?" Jordan asked, for the 100th time. "And a princess castle?" Clara added. "What about a space theme?" Rowan suggested, ever the diplomat trying to merge everyone's interests. "How about dinosaurs in space, having tea with princesses?" Avery proposed, earning giggles from all three. "That's silly, Dad," Jordan laughed. "Dad." The word still made Avery's heart skip, even though it had become natural in the children's vocabulary months ago. One evening, after an especially chaotic day involving a kitchen mishap that resulted in flour covering most of the penthouse, Avery and Ava collapsed on the couch in exhausted laughter. "We're covered in flour," Ava noted, brushing white powder from her hair. "So is every surface in the kitchen," Avery added. "I'm not sure those cookies were worth it." "The children had fun," Ava pointed out. That's what matters. When did we become people who don't care about flower explosions? Avery mused. When we became parents, Ava replied. The real kind. Not just the title. Their eyes met, and something shifted in that moment. The laughter faded into something more serious, more meaningful. Ava, Avery began, his heart pounding. These past months, living here together, raising the children as a team, it's been the happiest I've been in years, maybe ever. Ava started, but he pressed on. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just need you to know. Being here with you, with them, it's shown me what I gave up, what I threw away, because I was too blind to see what mattered. You're not that person anymore, Ava said softly. The man who shows up for dinosaur birthday party planning, who reads bedtime stories with funny voices, who braids hair and manages art project explosions, that's not the man I divorced. No, Avery agreed. He's not. But is he someone you could imagine more with? Eventually, Ava was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she admitted honestly. Part of me wants to say yes immediately. But the part that remembers how much it hurt to be invisible in my own marriage, that part is afraid. I understand, Avery said, though disappointment flickered across his features. And I'll wait, however long it takes. I'm not going anywhere. I believe you, Ava whispered. And that's terrifying. This moment right here changes everything. If you felt that shift, tap like. Share this with someone who needs to remember that second chances exist. The turning point came unexpectedly, as such moments often do. One afternoon, Avery returned from a rare in-office day to find Ava sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by photo albums and loose photographs, tears streaming down her face. What's wrong? He asked immediately, dropping his briefcase and kneeling beside her. Are you hurt? Is it the children? No, Ava assured him quickly. They're fine. Casey took them to the park. She gestured helplessly at the photos scattered around her. I was organizing pictures for their birthday party slideshow, and I found these. She held up a photograph. Their wedding day. Young, happy, so full of hope for their future. We were so in love, Ava said, her voice breaking. When did we lose that? How did I not fight harder to save us? You did fight, Avery said gently, sitting beside her on the floor. You fought by trying to get me to be present, by suggesting therapy, by begging me to prioritize us. I was the one who didn't fight. I surrendered our marriage without ever entering the battle. I gave up too, Ava insisted. I left without giving you a chance to change, without telling you about the pregnancy. You were protecting yourself, Avery countered, from someone who had proven, repeatedly, that work mattered more than you did. He picked up another photo from their honeymoon in Greece. I look at this person I was, and I barely recognize him. So arrogant, so certain his path was the only one that mattered. And now? Ava asked. Now I know there's only one thing that matters, Avery said, meeting her eyes. This, our family, these moments that seem ordinary, but are actually everything. Ava reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and cupped his face. I'm still scared, she admitted. So am I, Avery replied. But maybe scared together is better than safe apart. The kiss was soft, tentative a question more than a statement. When Ava pulled back, tears glistened in her eyes. We can't rush this, she whispered. We have 3 little hearts to consider now. I know, Avery agreed. We take it slow. We do it right this time. Okay, Ava said, a smile breaking through her tears. But if you ever... I won't. Avery interrupted gently. I promise, Ava. You'll never be invisible to me again. Not ever. Ever. The kiss that followed was deeper, filled with years of longing and loss and hope for something new being built on the foundation of something broken, but not beyond repair. When the children burst through the door with Casey, they found their parents sitting close together on the floor, surrounded by photographs, hands intertwined. Are you guys kissing? Jordan asked with a 4-year-old's blunt curiosity. Maybe a little, Ava admitted, her cheeks flushing. Does this mean you're married again? Clara wanted to know. Not yet, Avery said, earning a surprised look from Ava at the yet. But we're working on it. Slowly. Is that okay with you three? 3 enthusiastic nods answered him. Can we have pancakes for dinner to celebrate? Rowan asked, ever practical. Absolutely, Avery agreed, standing and offering Ava his hand to help her up. Dinosaur-shaped pancakes. Those are the best kind, Jordan declared with authority. As Avery stood in the kitchen attempting to make dinosaur-shaped pancakes while 3 children offered conflicting advice and Ava laughed at his efforts from the doorway, he had a revelation. This was success. Not the billions in the bank, not the global company, not the magazine covers or the accolades. This flower in his hair, children laughing, the woman he loved watching with affection in her eyes. This was what winning actually looked like. The months that followed were a careful dance of rebuilding trust and redefining their relationship. Avery and Ava dated actual dates, with babysitters and restaurants in conversation that wasn't about the children's schedules or behavioral challenges. They attended counseling together, working through old wounds and establishing new patterns. They learned each other again not as the people they'd been in their 20s, but as the people they'd become through years of separate growth and shared parenthood. Tell me about the pregnancy, Avery asked one evening over dinner at a quiet restaurant. I want to know everything I missed. So Ava told him about the shock of the positive test, the wonder of the first ultrasound showing 3 heartbeats, the difficulties of carrying triplets, the terrifying early delivery. She showed him on her phone the photos she'd taken throughout her growing belly, the first glimpses of 3 tiny faces in the NICU, the gradual journey home. I missed so much, Avery said, his voice thick with regret. But you're here now, Ava replied, covering his hand with hers. Missing their first years doesn't mean you can't be there for all the years ahead. I want to be, Avery said intensely. I want to be there for first days of school, and lost teeth, and heartbreaks, and triumphs. I want every moment I can possibly have. Then you will be, Ava promised. By the time the triplets approached their next milestone birthday, Avery and Ava had rebuilt what they'd lost and created something new and stronger in its place. They'd learned to communicate instead of retreating, to prioritize connection over convenience, to show up, even when it was hard. One evening, Avery found a drawing Clara had made. It showed 5 stick figures holding hands. She'd added him to their family portrait without being asked. Can I keep this? He'd asked her then, his throat tight. It's for you, silly, Clara had giggled. That's why I made it. Now, months later, that drawing hung in his office at Horizon Technologies, a reminder of what truly mattered. The proposal, when it came, surprised no one and everyone at the same time. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening. The children were attempting to build an elaborate block tower, and Ava was reviewing blueprints at the dining table. Avery had just returned from the office, his tie loosened, looking delightfully rumpled. I have a question, he announced to the room at large. Is it about dinosaurs? Jordan asked hopefully. Not this time, Avery replied with a smile, though dinosaurs are always important. He crossed to where Ava sat, pulled a small box from his pocket, and dropped to one knee. Avery, Ava breathed, her hand flying to her mouth. Ava Sinclair, he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Years ago, I asked you to marry me on a rooftop, promising you a future I had no idea how to build. I failed you. I failed us. But you gave me something I never deserved a second chance. Not just with you, but with 3 incredible humans who call me Dad. The children had abandoned their blocks, watching with wide eyes. I'm not promising it will be perfect, Avery continued. I'm not promising I won't make mistakes. But I am promising to show up. Every day, in every way. To choose us over everything else. To never again let you feel invisible or unimportant. To be the partner and father our family deserves. He opened the box, revealing a ring, not the massive diamond he'd chosen the first time to impress her, but something more meaningful. A custom design incorporating elements of her architectural style. Elegant and personal. Will you marry me? Again? For real this time? Ava's tears were flowing freely now. You rebuilt yourself, she whispered. Became someone I never thought you could be. I became who I should have been all along, Avery corrected. Say yes, Ava. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of this miracle. Yes, Ava said, laughing through her tears. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. As Avery slipped the ring on her finger, 3 small bodies launched themselves at their parents, creating a group hug that nearly toppled everyone to the floor. Does this mean we get another party? Jordan asked, ever practical. The biggest party ever, Avery promised, catching Ava's eye over the children's heads. Because this time, we're doing everything right. The wedding was intimate, just family and close friends on the same rooftop where Avery had first proposed. But everything else was different. Avery's vows were raw and honest. I promised to show up not just physically, but emotionally. Not just in the big moments, but in the small ones. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. I promise to remember that every spreadsheet, every deal, every achievement means nothing compared to coming home to you and our children. I promise to never again prioritize success over significance. Ava's vows were equally powerful. I promise to trust you with my fears instead of hiding them. To give you the chance to prove yourself instead of assuming you'll fail. To build our family together, not protect it from you. I promise to remember that people can change, that miracles happen, and that love, real love, is worth fighting for. When the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Avery cupped Ava's face tenderly. "I love you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing who I could become." "I love you too," Ava replied. "Thank you for becoming him." Their kiss was witnessed by 3 cheering children who had served as ring bearers, flower girl, and enthusiastic commentators throughout the ceremony. "Are we really a family now?" Clara asked as they posed for photos afterward. "We've always been a family," Avery told her, lifting her into his arms. "Now we're just making it official." "Good," Clara pronounced, "because I like when we're all together." "Me too, baby girl," Avery said, his heart full. "Me too." As the triplets approached their 6th birthday, healthy, happy, thriving Avery often found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. An impossible pregnancy, a chance accident, a miracle that defied medical odds. "Do you believe in fate?" Ava asked him one night, as they stood on the balcony, watching the city lights. "I believe in second chances," Avery replied, pulling her close. "I believe in miracles. And I believe that sometimes the life we're meant to live doesn't become clear until we've almost lost everything." "Profound," Ava teased, resting her head on his shoulder. "I have my moments," Avery said with a smile. Then, more seriously, "Thank you, Ava, for not giving up on me, for giving me the chance to know them, to know you again, for believing I could change." "You did the hard part," Ava replied. "I just opened the door. You chose to walk through it." "Best decision I ever made," Avery murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. From inside, they heard the sound of laughter. The triplets still awake despite bedtime having passed, giggling over some private joke. "We should probably," Ava began. "In a minute," Avery interrupted. "Let them laugh a little longer. There's no deadline on joy." Ava smiled, recognizing the truth in his words. This man, who had once measured his worth in quarterly earnings and market dominance, now understood that some moments were too precious to rush. As Christmas approached, the penthouse was transformed into a winter wonderland by 3 enthusiastic decorators and their enabling parents. The tree was covered in handmade ornaments, mostly lopsided stars and uneven angels, but treasured all the more for their imperfection. On Christmas morning, surrounded by wrapping paper and excited children, Avery caught Ava's eye across the chaos. "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Cole," he mouthed. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Cole," she mouthed back, her smile radiant. "Dad! Dad! Look what Santa brought!" Jordan's excited shout pulled Avery's attention to an enormous dinosaur set that somehow Santa had managed to find. "Incredible," Avery said, matching his son's enthusiasm. "Should we build it together?" As he sat on the floor, surrounded by tiny dinosaurs and instruction manuals, with Rowan carefully organizing pieces by color and Clara adding artistic flourishes to the prehistoric landscape they were creating, Avery experienced a moment of perfect clarity. This was everything. This was enough. This was more than enough. It was abundance, beyond measure. "What you thinking?" Ava asked, settling beside him with a cup of coffee. "That I used to think success meant conquering the world," Avery replied. "Turns out it just means showing up for pancake breakfast and reading bedtime stories and building dinosaur sets on Christmas morning." "Profound," Ava echoed his earlier word with a smile. "I have my moments," Avery repeated, capturing her hand and bringing it to his lips. "You have more than moments," Ava said seriously. "You've become an incredible father, an incredible partner. I'm proud of you, Avery." The words, simple though they were, meant more than any business accolade ever had. As the triplets prepared for their 6th birthday, life had settled into a beautiful ordinary. School runs and work projects, family dinners and weekend adventures, the lovely mundane rhythm of a life well lived. The Horizon Fertility Foundation continued its work, now with both Avery and Ava on the board, their story a testament to hope in the face of impossible odds. They'd helped fund research that was changing outcomes for couples facing similar diagnoses, giving others the same miracle they'd been granted. "We should tell the children soon," Ava said one evening, about how unlikely they were, about the miracle of their existence. Age-appropriate version, Avery agreed. But yes, they should know there are 3 impossible, wonderful miracles. That conversation happened on a lazy Sunday morning, all 5 of them piled on the oversized couch that had replaced Avery's sterile designer furniture. "We want to tell you a story," Ava began, "about how you came to be." "We know where babies come from," Jordan announced. "This is different," Avery said, suppressing a smile. "This is about why you 3 are extra special." He explained in simple terms about the doctor saying he couldn't have children, about how rare it was for the pregnancy to happen, about how not 1, but 3 babies defied the odds. "So we're miracles?" Clara asked, her eyes wide. "The biggest miracles we've ever known," Ava confirmed. "Does that mean we're magic?" Rowan wanted to know. "Something like that," Avery agreed, pulling all 3 into a hug. "You're definitely magical to us." "Cool," Jordan pronounced. "Can miraculous children have ice cream for breakfast?" "Nice try," Ava laughed. But no. As the children scattered to play, arguing good-naturedly about whether miracles should come with special privileges, Avery and Ava remained on the couch, hands intertwined. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the accident never occurred?" Ava asked quietly. "If I just kept raising them alone, if you'd never known?" "Every day," Avery admitted. "And every day, I'm grateful for whatever twist of fate brought us to this moment. I hate that you were hurt. I hate that the children were frightened. But I can't bring myself to regret the outcome." "Me neither," Ava confessed. "As terrible as it was, it gave them their father. It gave us a second chance. Some good came from the pain." "The best good," Avery agreed, watching their 3 miracles play together with the easy affection of children who felt secure in their parents' love. "You made it this far because something about this story matters to you. Don't let it end here. Subscribe and flood the comments with, 'I believe,' so I know you're with me." Years would pass. The triplets would grow, moving through childhood milestones with 2 parents who showed up for every concert, every game, every important moment, and all the unimportant ones too. Horizon Technologies would continue to thrive under Avery's strategic but balanced leadership. Ava's architectural firm would grow, her designs winning awards and changing skylines. But the core would remain the same. A family built from broken pieces, a love rebuilt from ashes. 3 impossible children who prove that miracles don't just happen to people who haven't given up hope. They happen to people who keep showing up, even when the odds say it's impossible. In the end, Avery Cole learned that building an empire was nothing compared to building a home. That success meant nothing without significance. That the most important board meetings happened around a dinner table. That the greatest achievements weren't measured in profit margins, but in bedtime stories read with funny voices and pancakes shaped like dinosaurs and tiny hands that trusted yours to guide them. He'd been declared infertile. The doctor said natural conception was virtually impossible. The odds were 1 in thousands. But 3 small miracles proved that impossible just meant unlikely. That virtually didn't account for love's determination. That 1 in thousands meant there was still a chance, however slim, for hope to defy expectation. As Avery tucked the triplets into bed, one unremarkable Tuesday, Jordan with his newest dinosaur, Rowan with a partially completed puzzle he'd finish tomorrow, Clara clutching the same stuffed rabbit she'd held the day they met, he reflected on how far they'd all come. "Love you, Dad," 3 sleepy voices chorused. "Love you more," Avery replied, the words coming easily now where once they would have felt foreign. In the hallway, Ava waited, and together they walked to their room, not separate spaces pretending at co-parenting, but truly shared, truly home. "Good day?" she asked, settling against him as they lay in bed. "Perfect day," Avery replied. "Totally ordinary, completely miraculous." "That's redundant," Ava teased. "With us, ordinary is miraculous," Avery countered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "That's what I've learned." Outside, the city lights twinkled against the night sky. The same view from the same penthouse where this chapter had begun. But everything else had changed. The sterile showpiece had become a home. The workaholic executive had become a present father. The broken marriage had been rebuilt into something stronger than before. And in the children's room, 3 impossible miracles slept peacefully, dreaming of dinosaurs and puzzles and tomorrow's adventures, secure in the knowledge that both their parents would be there when they woke. Because miracles, it turns out, don't just happen once. They happen every single day you choose to show up, to love, to believe that impossible just means you haven't found the way yet. And sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't the 3 unexpected children born despite impossible odds. It's the man who learns to become the father they deserve. The woman who learns to trust again. The broken things that refuse to stay broken. That's the real miracle, not the beginning, but everything that comes after. The choice to keep choosing. The commitment to keep showing up. The love that refuses to accept impossible as an answer. The Cole family, Avery, Ava, Rowan, Jordan, and Clara, were living proof that second chances exist, that people can change, that families come in all forms, built and rebuilt, broken and mended, impossible but undeniably real. And if you asked any of them whether they believed in miracles, 5 voices would answer in unison, "Yes, we are one."